So, Stranger Things Season 5 just ended. I was originally going to talk about each volume separately, but I never got around to doing that. So, I'm just going to talk about the whole thing now. Full spoilers. I'm not going to go through every single thing that happened, but I'm just going to give some overall notes, and I will touch on a few moments that specifically stood out to me. Overall, I'm a big fan of the writing this season. I think it's maybe the best it's been since season 2. Each person's choices felt true to their character. You could really understand the motivations, and their interactions just felt natural. I've seen a few complaints online about how much this season focused on Holly Wheeler. I personally like that we got some character development. I mean, she's been around in the background in previous seasons, but I think that Nell Fisher, who played Holly this season, put in a great performance, and I loved it. I also like having the entire gang back together. I know for a while there was everyone was off in different locations. We had some people in California, some people in Hawkins. Hopper was in Russia for a while, and it's nice to not have that anymore. There's still a little bit of party splitting as people go to different locations, but it's not like vastly different locations. It's just people in different parts of Hawkins and or the Upside Down. There are a couple things that I have some gripes with. First of all, being the CGI. It's not that it looks bad. In fact, I'd say most of the time it's way better than it has been, which it should, because reportedly this season cost almost $500,000. But the Demogorgons, for some reason, just don't feel like they're inhabiting the same space as the actors. Now, of course, I'm not a digital artist, so I can't really put my finger on what the issue is. Maybe it has something to do with the lighting, but the Demogorgons just don't feel like they have any weight to them. And so even when they're throwing people across the room, it just doesn't have any impact. And it makes it very obvious that we're watching wire stunts. Another thing that kept popping up was how cool everyone seems to think they are. There are just several moments throughout this season where it felt like there was no sense of urgency and people were prioritizing aura farming over getting things done. My last big gripe, and this kind of extends outside of just season 5, but I just don't like the idea of Vecna as a villain, and so this isn't necessarily something wrong with this season, this is just personal preference, but I feel like fear of the unknown is one of the strongest fears that humanity has, and I think that in earlier seasons, the Upside Down did a very good job at capitalizing on that fear. Everything was mysterious. We didn't know where these monsters were coming from. It was just this strange realm that 11 somehow opened a portal to. But the second that we find out that everything that has happened across the past 5 seasons has all been part of Vecna's plan, all of that mystery disappears. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with the mystery disappearing, but because the mystery was the scary part, having the mystery go away also means that the fear goes away. But getting back to Vecna, I do want to say Jamie Campbell Bower absolutely killed it. I have no complaints with his performance as Vecna. I think that for what the series did, it did well in that arena. Like I said before, this is just a personal preference. I think it would have been more interesting to have a more alien, monstrous entity be the bad guy. And Netflix kind of tried to have its cake and eat it too by reintroducing the Mind Flayer in the last episode, but it never really felt like its own thing. It was just an extension of Vecna. It never felt like it had its own motivations or its own goals. It was just doing what Vecna was doing. Something that kind of caught me off guard, not really good or bad, just was unexpected for me was the inclusion of Linda Hamilton. I just recently watched the show Resident Alien, and Linda Hamilton also plays a military general conducting a secret operation. And so having the same person in pretty much the same role in these two different series just threw me for a loop. I'm not going to talk about Resident Alien a whole bunch, but definitely worth checking out, especially if you like Alan Tudyk. He's the main character in that show, and it's a good time. I think we saw a lot more of Mike's leadership in this season, which I have been missing for a while. I feel like in season one, he very clearly was the leader of the group, but those qualities have disappeared as they've tried to put more focus on other characters and this and that and the other. But there are two moments specifically that I think it really showcased his ability to inspire and lead other people. The first moment was his conversation with Holly. I think it was so sweet, and it's nice to see the moments of siblings being together. I like the moments between Will and Jonathan as well, but Mike and Holly, specifically him, the fact that he already had a D&D figurine prepared to give to her, it just was so touching to me, and his pep talk, the one nitpick I guess I have about that is I'm not sure why he didn't take her concerns seriously. Like, I guess maybe it was just him trying to reassure her, but I feel like if your sister is telling you that there are monsters abducting kids, and you know that that's true, like Mike knows that there are monsters abducting kids, why, even if he doesn't want to admit to her that that's what's happening, why would he not take that a little more seriously? Like, he should have gone back to the rest of the gang and be like, hey, something's going on here because Holly knows about the monsters. But that never happened. He's just like, monsters aren't real. The second moment that I thought showed Mike in a really good light was during the attack on the base when there is that gorgeous one shot of Mike leading the kids through the battle, which I love a good one shot, and it's an easy way to excite me, but I also think that in addition to being great cinematography, it also was a great character moment for Mike and showing that in a crisis, he immediately steps up to help these children get to safety. I think probably the strongest emotional moment, the attack on the Wheeler residence, was phenomenal. I think specifically the shot of Holly and Karen hiding in the bathtub while the Demogorgon is standing above them. I saw a behind the scenes thing of how they shot that, and that it's really clever, but what a amazing shot, and the tension that you feel with, like, how long can they hold their breath before this thing leaves? Just it was a great scene. But also the fact that both Ted and Karen, not having seen these monsters before, this is a brand new experience for them, chose to fight instead of running away, shows the immense courage that the entire Wheeler family has. However, again, there is this trend this season of having a really powerful moment, and then for some reason, it always ends with something that just pisses me off. And for the attack on the Wheeler house, it was so strong and emotional. But then, like I mentioned earlier, we have more aura farming from 11 when they see the portal in the door and Nancy's yelling at her to run and chase and try to get Holly. She just slowly walks through the door because they thought that that would look cooler. They did win me back pretty quickly after that scene, though, because the following scene with Nancy and Mike at the hospital and Nancy trying to wash the blood off of her hands, the sound design and the frantic camera work, it was so amazing. And I think that Natalia Dyer, who plays Nancy, I mean, what a performance. I think that this is maybe one of my favorite scenes. This plus the attack on the house made the beginning of episode 2 easily my favorite of season 5. I try not to complain too much about TV logic, but it was a little silly that Hopper was like limping and clearly in a whole lot of pain, and he was like, I'm not gonna make it. And then 11 just basically washes out his wound and puts a band-aid on, and then he's fine just forever after that. It's never mentioned again that he got shot. The reveal of Mr. Whatsit being Vecna was also kind of ridiculous. I feel like, first of all, that it was kind of obvious because who else would it be? But if you hadn't figured it out until that point, the second that Karen writes an H on the paper, Henry is the only possible option. And the fact that they drew out that scene for so long and we had to watch her slowly struggle to write every single letter, I feel like reveals like that don't work very well when the audience knows the information before the characters do. And so I think that was bad pacing. And I know that there's been a lot of talk of Netflix having to over explain things because they expect people to be on their phones while they're watching. And so maybe if you're like scrolling through Instagram while you're watching that scene, it feels faster. I don't know, but there was a problem there. I loved the sequence of them setting up the booby traps for the Demogorgon at the Turnbow house. It felt very Home Alone. And like I mentioned earlier, I just love seeing everyone work together. I love seeing them put a plan together and just execute. Max's journey through all of Henry's memories felt so expositional. I feel like that entire episode felt like it served no purpose other than to set up Henry's backstory and his weakness and the fact that the cave is a safe area. And it's just all of these things that it was just like, it felt like a waste of Max's character to have all of this happening for no reason other than to explain something to the audience. I'll tell you, it was not wasted though. Derek Turnbow. That child was one of the best additions, I think. And the turn from dipshit Derek to delightful Derek, I mean, I've never changed my opinion on someone faster in my life. When he was dipshit Derek, I hated that kid. But the second that he saw Demogorgon and he flipped a switch immediately, and my god, so did I. Because Delightful Derek was the best character, and him helping all of the kids and immediately following everyone else's track. He is full in on the plan after that point. And then when they told him, "Hey, for this plan to work, we need dipshit Derek back," he was like, "I fucking got you." And I mean, it was just the most pleasant experience watching that whole thing kick off. I think this season overall is a lot more violent than previous seasons, or I should say more graphic than previous seasons. There's been a lot of implied violence previously, but I think one of the most shocking moments for me was when Eleven and Hopper are attacking the base in the Upside Down. Eleven just snaps a guy's neck, and it just felt so callous. And it like they had killed other people, but I feel like it's different when it's in self-defense, and I feel like most shows would not have one of the main characters just murder somebody, and that was a bit much. What was even more surprising, but in a bad way, is we right after establishing that Eleven and Hopper are willing to kill everyone, and Hopper was planning on blowing up the base. He was going to kill everyone, and yet, for some reason, he doesn't kill the general. And I know that that's just because they wanted to keep using Linda Hamilton, but it is just idiotic to not kill her. The massacre at the topside base, however, was such an exciting scene. And I mean, definitely the most graphic, I think. There are people getting their heads crushed and just ripped apart, and it was fun to watch. It included that beautiful one shot that I talked about earlier, and although, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of Vecna as a character, I do really like the redesign. I feel like he looks so much more menacing and so much more like a serious bad guy versus last season. He just looked a little silly. So I'm glad that they took the opportunity to fix that. I respect Joyce's decision to try to protect her son, but there is a line between courage and stupidity, and I think that she might have crossed it. I feel like had she picked him up and tried to run away, would have been fine. Would have made sense and would have been fine. But instead, she decides that she's going to yell at Vecna, and that's going to do something. Let's get this straight. The only reason that Joyce is alive is because Vecna decided not to kill her, which doesn't really make sense for his character either. I don't know. There are a lot of times in this season when he spares people for zero reason. Will's flashback sequence was adorable. I don't know who those kid actors were that they used, but they were all cute as fuck. And I feel like finishing it off with Will chrissying the Demogorgons was one of the most badass moments ever. I do, like I mentioned earlier, they have a habit of ending moments like that with cringe, and the badassery of Will gaining his powers is topped off with him doing like a anime main character nose wipe. And I was like, we didn't need that. I do love all the memes online that are talking about Will unlocking the power of gay. That is, I mean, it's just funny. They mention several times that Will is a sorcerer because they're all D&D nerds, and I'm about to get a little D&D nerdy as well. But the problems that I have with this are, first of all, sorcerer was not introduced as a class until 3rd edition, which came out in 2000 after the series takes place. So sorcerer wouldn't have been an option for them. And second of all, even if we are ignoring additions, Will isn't a sorcerer. They're like, oh, well, you're not a wizard because your powers are innate. But they're not. Eleven and Kali, they have innate powers. They are sorcerers. It's in their blood that they have these abilities. Will, it's pretty clear that he is only able to steal power when he's close to the hive mind. Then he can access Vecna's power and he can use that. He has no powers of his own. So if we're ignoring additions, Will is a warlock. Will is way more of a warlock than he is a sorcerer. But again, that's something that most of the audience probably isn't going to notice. I had to mention it. I think it's actually really interesting to have the reveal that the Upside Down isn't a realm in and of itself, but that it is this gateway between Earth and the Abyss. That does raise a few other issues, though. First of all, is it's a bit coincidental that no one noticed the giant circular flesh wall until now. Like, I get not a lot of people are going there, but especially if the crew has been doing these dungeon crawls where they're scoping out the entire area to find Vecna. You'd think they'd set up a perimeter first, right? Like that should be the first thing they notice. And also, not once has there ever been a point where someone tried to like go to the outskirts of I don't know. It feels very coincidental that all of a sudden there's this giant flesh wall that no one knew about. The second thing I don't understand is when Holly escapes in the abyss and tries to crawl through to the other side, why does the gravity not flip? When you go through on the Hawkins side, if you crawl through the ground, you come up through the ground, and then you're still standing on the ground in the upside down. But when Holly crawls through the ground in the abyss, rather than coming up through the ground on the upside down version of the abyss, she just starts falling. And so it seems like for some reason the gravity only works one way, even though that is already opposite from the real world. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't know why Holly fell aside from the fact that it gave everyone else information on where she is. It felt a little forced, if I'm going to be honest. Like they just had to ignore the rules for a bit to make sure that the rest of the characters gained some information. The fight between Steve and Dustin was probably one of the most frustrating, but like in a good way. Like it's narratively frustrating, which is it's just because you want these two characters to make up and be friends because they used to be really good friends. And then them fighting throughout the series, it was just so tense. And when they finally did, like, actually started fighting and then later made up, my God, I almost started crying. I feel like both of them acted their asses off. And it was a beautiful moment. And everything that led up to that moment, it really served its function emotionally. I can't say the same for Millie Bobby Brown. I think that unfortunately she is one of the worst actors in the series. I've seen a lot of comments online talking about her getting Botox or something like that, where it made it difficult for her to move her face. I haven't done any research, I haven't seen any confirmation on that, and I don't like making assumptions about people in that way, so I'm just gonna blame it on the fact that she's not a good actor. And every single scene where anything is happening, it's the most annoying face, and she just doesn't know how to emote. And it's just a little frustrating that she is, like, the biggest character. I wasn't a huge fan of the hospital scene with the demo dogs. I know they were trying to go for a Jurassic Park, Raptors in the Kitchen kind of thing, but first of all, you can't have a one scene where Lucas is refusing to turn down the stereo. He's like, "No, we need it. Otherwise, Max isn't gonna get out. I need to keep this stereo on." And then the next scene, they just like in the edit turned the volume down to make it seem as if these kids are hiding behind one of the washing machines and the demo dogs can't find them. It choose one. As filmmakers, choose one. Either the stereo is on and they are immediately found and they have to figure out some other way out of this, or you have this tense scene of them hiding and the demo dogs are looking for them, but then you can't have the stereo on. And this happens unfortunately more often than I'd like in all sorts of media, where people will just act like if you can't see someone, you can't tell where their voice is coming from. That's not how sound works. And it's just a little frustrating to act like the sound of the music could be coming from anywhere. No, it's coming from behind that dryer over there. And I don't know. It's it's frustrating. And then they tried to have another badass moment with Karen Wheeler where she blows up the demo dogs, but they kind of ruined it by making them the demo dogs when they looked inside and saw the oxygen can twirling around. They did the little like puppy dog head tilt. It was so cartoonish and just it made it not a badass moment anymore. Also, I know that plenty of other people have complained about this, but holy shit, Max spent 15 whole minutes talking to Holly right outside the exit, and it was made even more frustrating because We had already seen it before. In the episode where Max was telling Holly about her previous attempt to escape, she gets to the portal and then she fucks around staring at it for too long and touching her hand and going like, "Oh my god, look, there's Lucas." And then she got captured because she wasn't moving. And now we have the same sequence where they're right outside the portal, and rather than going through the portal, she wants to stand there and talk. And when they were in the cave, that was fine because that was a safe area. Henry doesn't want to go into the cave, so we can talk here. In this weird red spiky area where the portals are, they're not safe there. Vecna could show up there and capture them. And I feel like it detracts from Mike's conversation with Holly to have Max give her a follow-up pep talk. It's maybe like more realistic that way. Like obviously you can't just talk to someone once and they're all of a sudden don't have any more fear. But the fact that Holly straight up says it doesn't work, it's like, okay, well, fuck Mike then, I guess. I felt like there should have been more payoff for Holly the heroic as this little figurine giving Holly the courage to move forward. And just from a logistics standpoint, Max should have explained everything to her way sooner. They had plenty of time in the cave when they were just waiting around for her to be like, "Hey, just so you know, when we find the exits, my exit is different from your exit. We can't go to the same place." But instead, she waits until the last possible second where they're standing in front of Max's portal and she's like, "Hey, by the way, you can't come with me." It just didn't really make sense to me, and it took away from the fact that they had been rushing and everything was so immediate and urgent up until this point to immediately cut all of the momentum for that conversation. I respect the fact that they committed to making Will gay and openly rather than it because it could have just been an implied thing where it's like if you're looking for it it's like yeah Will's probably gay but they never say it outright kind of a thing. I like that they really just made that happen. However, although it is explained when Will is like, Vecna showed me a vision of everyone leaving me and that everyone was going to hate me if they knew that I was gay. And so that's why he wanted to tell people. It does seem a little dumb that everyone was there. I feel like it would have been a perfectly fine scene if it was like his mom and his friends. But is Will really going to be that upset if Collie doesn't like him after finding out that he's gay? Or Vicky? Like, why did every single person in the series need to be in that room? It's not that the scene itself was bad, it was just done suboptimally. It also felt like Kali died having done practically nothing. I'm really not even sure why they brought her back. Like, I guess it's kind of interesting conceptually to have someone else that escaped the lab, but I'm pretty sure that the episode in season 2 where they introduced Kali is like one of the most hated episodes ever, and I'm inclined to agree. I really did not like that episode. And so choosing to bring back such an unpopular character for the final season is a very questionable decision. And like I said, she did absolutely nothing except for bring the mood down. Every single scene she was in was just like, we're all going to die. This is pointless. The military is either going to capture us or we have to kill ourselves. And I was like, what is this nonsense? Like, I don't, it's just not something I think that we needed. I feel like even if you wanted to arrive at the conclusion that 11 believes she needs to kill herself, she could have discovered that on her own. Hopper, when he went through the door, rather than discovering Collie, could have discovered those pregnant women, and maybe they had a like backups of Henry's blood or something that they had been keeping on preserve. I don't know. Figure out a different way for that information to be revealed, and then 11 make the decision on her own. Hey, this isn't going to end. And even if we survive, the military is always going to be coming after me. And so we have to figure out a different way. And if that means I have to die, then I have to die. We didn't need Kali for that. And so it just leaves me questioning why she was there to begin with. We had like a quadruple twist with Henry's motivation. Because first, he was evil the whole time. Then he was made evil because 11 sent him into the abyss and like turned him into a monster. Then he got his powers after touching a weird rock as a child, and then the mind flayer who already existed in the abyss was manipulating him to become evil. Then we figure out that no, Henry actually wanted to work with the mind flayer, and he is just an evil prick. And I do enjoy that they didn't try to make us sympathize with him because sometimes it is nice to just have a bad guy, but there's still no explanation and it makes the cave completely meaningless. Like, why was Henry afraid of that cave? Will tries to make sense of it saying, "Oh, the mind flayer didn't want you to see this memory because then you would know that he was playing you the whole time." And Henry's like, "Nah, fam. I actually love the mind flayer and I love being evil." And it's like, "So why are you afraid of this then? You obviously have no problem killing people. So what's the bad memory of you killing this old man?" I don't get it. I don't get it. And for all of the over explanation that they have in other scenes, they just refused to explain this at all. I don't think that Mike's theory about 11 surviving really holds up to scrutiny. Like, there are a lot of things that would need to fall into place, not least of which the fact that there's no possible way Kali survived that long. Like, maybe she was like pretending to be dead or whatever, but that seems like a bit of a stretch. Like, she was about to die, and then somehow she is not only still alive, but strong enough to use her powers at an incredible range, way further than she was able to earlier in the series. I don't think so. I don't think so. But that said, it does seem a little fishy that if 11 is just standing in the doorway in front of everyone, and the military has been searching specifically for her this entire time, not a single person tried to go and grab her. No one was like, "Oh, hey, there's the girl we're looking for. Let's go get her." Everyone just stood there and watched her blow away in the wind. So I don't know. Maybe it was purposely made to not make any sense so that Mike's theory would be more believable, but it just feels a little silly to me. And there were way too many epilogues. Like, I would think it was like 5 separate scenes, and I get it because the series has been around for like a decade now, and people love these characters. They wanted to give everyone closure, but it just felt like we didn't need to see at least half of what we saw. We did not need to see Hopper proposing to Joyce. We didn't need to see the older kids hanging out on the rooftop. We probably didn't need to see most of that graduation scene, especially all of the stuff with like, oh, Mike doesn't want to go because he's sad, and then Hopper goes to give him a pep talk. It just dragged on. And I know I've been complaining a lot this whole video, and it sounds maybe like I hated everything. I promise I really didn't. This season was great. I think it's because it was so good that all of the bad stuff stood out more. Those were the things that I can't get out of my head. And that's unfortunate. But overall, I did like the series, and I think, I mean, if you're watching this, I'm assuming you either don't care about Stranger Things or you've already watched all of season 5. So if that's the case, please let me know what you thought. If you agree or disagree with anything that I've said, leave it down in the comments. I would be glad to read them. We can have a conversation about them. If there's something you think that I missed and might change my mind, I would especially be glad to hear about that. So please do that. If you've been keeping up with the channel, you know that Luca is out of the country for a while, so we won't have another full episode until probably February, but there is another one of these videos that I want to do. So if you would like to see that, subscribe, hit the bell icon because that will notify you the next time that I upload something. If there's anything that you think I could improve on in this specific series of videos, please let me know. And that said, thanks for watching.